Hello, welcome to my channel, The Ascension Guide. I'm your guide, Joe Martin. Today we have a special guest with us, Goodman. Lion is a spiritual explorer, as the rest of us are to a huge degree. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Lion, and let you introduce yourself and what you do.
Thank you, Joe. I really appreciate your inviting me onto your program. So I'm often asked, who are you? And my answer is that's the question I've been asking my whole life. Who am I? I was really fortunate in having great teachers in my life, and they encouraged me to ask those kinds of big questions. Who am I? What's the nature of human nature? What's the nature of human motivation? Why do we do the things we do? What the heck are we doing here anyway? and
Good
uh,
questions.
Yeah, these are really good questions. And I find that the questions are more interesting than the answers, because we can come up with an answer to something, and that helps the brain relax. Like, okay, now I know. The unknown is uncomfortable to the brain and the mind. And so we tend to look for things to know rather than sitting in the question.
Mm,
And this brought me to the study of beliefs. What are they? Where do they come from? How do they form? Why do we have them? How do they function? And how can we change them? Because our beliefs operate like filters on our eyes, and we see what we believe. So they're like colored lenses that filter everything we see. And
mm,
so whatever you happen to believe, that's what you experience. And of course, that verifies the belief you had originally. So that's why people tend to believe something for a long time, even in the face of evidence to the contrary,
mm.
because the belief is being reinforced all the time and rejects information that goes against the belief. This is why people who have very strong beliefs, like fundamentalists in any field, um, will dig in deeper when you challenge them with facts. So based on that study, what I realized is that our beliefs actually create, or at least influence and color our reality. And so if you're not having a good time in your life for whatever reason, if there's pain or suffering or you're not happy, that means there's a belief underneath it in action, in operation. And so I developed a methodology for going down into that level of the mind or the psyche, the belief layer or the meaning making layer or the schema layer. There's lots of names for it, and making changes there. Because if you can make a change there, then the belief lens changes and you see a different world. It's sort of like changing from dark sunglasses to yellow sunglasses. It's a different world that you see.
Mm.
So if you have a negative view of yourself, there's something wrong with me, or I'm a pain in the butt or something, wherever that belief came from, it might have been indoctrinated into you when you were a kid. It might have been a conclusion you came to, but that's impacting your life and it's limiting your possibilities for being in the world. So, by changing those beliefs, you can open up new possibilities. You can see things you hadn't seen before and experience things you hadn't experienced before.
So what would you do? Like, what would be is this like a when you're in a hypnosis phase or a meditation, or is this like a mantra type of thing, or what is it? What are some, without giving away too much of your system?
None of the above.
None of the above. Okay.
None of the above. This is a methodology I put together through study of over 100 different workshops and trainings that I took
Mm,
that were all about psychology, philosophy, spirituality, shamanism, a really wide range of topics. And what I did is I looked at what were the most effective methods that gave me a big shift. And what those had in common was that there was a belief shift in them, right? There was a belief shift that went along with it. My favorite story is when I was in psychotherapy as a young man, I suddenly came to the realization, oh my God, it's not my mother's fault. And that changed everything, right?
yeah,
So,
right.
so there was a belief change, right, that stimulated me to take responsibility for my life and not blame my mother for everything. So all of the big shifts in my life came from those fundamental belief changes. And so I gathered together the best of the best processes and techniques and programs that I could and put them together into what's now called the Clear Beliefs Method. And some of them kind of came to me from spirit, some of them came from my great teachers in the past. But we use a couple of different methodologies. First of all, I have to explain that our experiences are multidimensional. You know this, right? And all your audience members know this because right now you're hearing and seeing and feeling and sensing and communicating and relating all at once. And so our experience is always multidimensional. Our beliefs come from our experience, whether it's somebody telling us you're a piece of crap or are coming to the conclusion I must be a piece of crap, otherwise I wouldn't be beaten. Uh, that it comes from experience. And because experience is multidimensional, so must beliefs be. So the reason why it's hard to change beliefs is because of the methodology that's used. For example, there's mental or verbal ways of trying to change beliefs, like saying affirmations. If I just say this statement over and over again, eventually something will change. Unfortunately, it doesn't because all the old negative beliefs are still in there. I like to use the analogy of creating a garden. If you're going to build a garden for vegetables and flowers, you'd first clear the land of
Mm.
rocks and weeds. If you just threw seeds on rocky, weedy ground, you wouldn't get much to grow. And that's what affirmations are. They're just like throwing seeds on rocky, weedy ground. But
That's
if
a
you
good
take the
point.
time to clear the rocks and weeds, and then you turn the soil over and you plant seeds there, then they will sprout, they will blossom and fruit. So
Makes a lot
beliefs
of
are the
sense.
same. Yeah,
Yeah.
beliefs are the same thing.
That's interesting because you do hear, especially in the spiritual community, that everybody's got their 2 cents about how to do this or do that. And I think a lot of people have a lot of truth in it. But like you said, sometimes there's more to it and more to, you got to clear stuff out and then you add on it, like you said. And so that's good way to look at it there. So how did your whole spiritual awakening or all of this start for you?
Well, it started very young because I was a weird kid, and I realized that there must be something wrong with me
Mm.
because I wasn't like all those other kids, and so I became an observer of them. I thought if I could figure out how they were like they were, and I could be like that, then I could be one of them and be normal. And after 45 years of trying to figure that out, I finally realized that there was nothing wrong with me to begin with. There's nothing wrong with any of us to begin with, except some bad programming, right?
Yeah.
That can be changed. So yeah, I was an early quester. I started reading about reincarnation at about age 12, and I read about ESP and read a book called How to Make ESP Work for You. And I practiced that in junior high school with my girlfriend, and we were practicing telepathy and remote sensing and that kind of thing. I was never able to do psychokinesis. I could never move an object with my mind, but but I got really good at reading people.
Oh,
And then that ended up with great teachers who taught me that the answers in the brain, that we have to understand how the brain works in order to understand who we are and how consciousness works. So I studied neurology, philosophy, religions, shamanism. I did 20 years of shamanic practice to try to enter into altered states to find out what's on the other side of that great mystery.
hmm.
So lots of decades, lots of exploration, books, teachers, gurus, workshops, and it feels like it's been lifelong.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what through that whole experience, is there anything that like stands out that was a big aha moment or maybe a big leap forward? I know like I feels like on my spiritual awakening, which I say mine started around like 2012, um, I had like big, leaps and then kind of plateaus. So what were did you have anything similar? Like what were your big leaps or big aha moments?
Probably the biggest aha moment of my life is my famous story about being shot in the head 4 times and almost killed.
Well, you got to
Um,
tell that.
yeah. I was 26 years old. I was traveling on the road, and I picked up a guy whose car had broken down in the middle of the Mojave Desert. And he traveled with me for 3 days. I ended up trusting him, sending him on errands. And the third night out, he pulled out a gun and shot me 4 times in the head. And I was basically a sitting duck, so there was nothing I could do. So I realized I'm going to die. And so I might as well die with peace in my heart rather than anger or upset. And I had studied death and dying, so it wasn't a big shock. I mean, I was certainly wasn't expecting to die at the age of 26, but I thought, well, this is my time, so I might as well get right with the Lord, you know. So I basically was reaching up into source, spirit, and I was filled with love and light. And I was outside my body, and when he shot the fourth time, and the bullet hit me, I my head was thrown violently sideways, and blood was rushing out from my head. But I was back in my body, and that surprised me because I knew I was supposed to be out of my body. I was already out of my body, right? And being out of my body, I could look down at the scene and go, "Isn't that amusing?" It's like those two little people in that little van, down there. That's so cute. What's happening down there? So it was, and I was just a point of consciousness. There wasn't an ego there, and it was a clear recognition that I am not my body.
Mm.
And everybody who's had an out of body or near death experience has that same experience of like, oh, there's my body down there, but I'm here, but that's not, so that can't be me down
Hmm.
there, because that, I don't want to be down there. It looks bad down there. So
Right. Yeah.
I'd rather be here. Like, and so it was that the love and the light that was pouring through me that actually saved my life. We ended up having an 8-hour conversation after it happened, in order to figure out how to get out of the situation. So,
Wow.
yeah,
So you made a full recovery, no limitations from that, or
right, right.
wow.
In fact, I never lost consciousness at all. I didn't know where the bullets had gone, but afterwards, I found out that 2 bullets had grazed my skull. So they
Wow.
bounced off my aura. I figured I had a hard aura.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, have you ever done a past life regression?
I've done a lot of past life work. Yeah.
So how comparable would a near-death experience be with a past life regression when you're
Well,
seeing
I
life?
think first of all, I think they're very different, because just because you're out of body or near death doesn't mean necessarily you know who you were in the past.
Mm.
And there's people who know who they were or find out what they experienced in the past who don't, they've never been out of their body. So I think they're two very different phenomena. Obviously, they both have to do with consciousness.
Oh, I
Uh,
meant the way the observation when you see it, is it similar?
ah,
Does it look the same as, or is it because I know like when I've had the past lives and you see the way you see it, is it like foggy like that, or is it crystal clear like it's happening right now?
well, I've had both kinds. I've had crystal clear visions of being on a horse as a Native American and being shot in the heart with an arrow, and I've
Mm.
had experiences remembering being on top of a pyramid, cutting out somebody's heart as an Aztec priest.
Wow.
Um, uh, but it doesn't really matter,
Mm.
in the sense that those are previous experiences. Whether they're real or not doesn't matter. Like I might be tapping into the Akashic records and remembering somebody else's life. I don't know.
Right.
I don't
Yeah.
have an answer for that. It certainly felt as if real. And so if we treat it as if real, then we can say, all right, what was the lesson there?
Mm.
What was I supposed to learn? Because that's what we're here for, is to learn lessons, to ascend, to have our souls ascend, and to reach a higher state of awareness, a higher state of beingness. And so it doesn't matter whether we have experience in this life or another life, if we can learn something from it and grow as human beings and become more virtuous, more, better human being and in service to others. That's what counts when you're dead and ready to go to the next level. It's
Right.
not how much money you accumulated, or how many people you kissed, or, or anything like
Right.
that. How
Exactly.
fast a car you drove. It's really who you were as a being.
Yeah.
And so in the work I do, which is called the Clear Beliefs Method, we deal with whatever comes up. So if somebody's early childhood trauma comes up, we deal with that. And we do it the same if a past life trauma comes up. It
Mm.
doesn't matter to us. We don't know where it comes from, but it's experience, and experience is the currency we work with.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So in that work, I'm sure you've seen quite a few interesting things or heard a few interesting things. Is there anything that you could share anonymously? Obviously, you got client, confidentiality, but is there anything that really stands out that's super interesting to you?
Well, I'll share something personal, which I think is relevant. I have a teacher, friend, trainer who does read past lives, and he can go back and see way beyond what I can see. And I was ready at one point to find out what I had done in my past, that was not good. And so I asked him, how many people have I killed in my past lives? and he asked, "Are you sure you want to know?" And I had to think about it. And I said, "Okay, am I ready to learn this information?" And I said, "Yes, I really want to know." He said, "Okay, I'll go look." And so he went to where he goes to look. And he comes back and he says, "Thousands by your hand and tens of thousands by your actions and decisions."
Wow.
Yeah. So I had to recognize that, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to counterbalance whatever negative karma I created in the past.
Hmm.
And so, what can I do to counterbalance that negative karma? I've got to be the best person I can be, serve as many people, awaken as many people as possible, serve the spirit rather than the ego. And so that kind of sets your sail, right? So if you know, because basically we forget, we have, we've when we come into a body, we forget everything that we knew in the past. We start over. It'd be nice if we all came in with those memories and went, "Wow, I really fucked up in the past lives. I'm gonna fly straight this time." It would
Right.
be helpful, but most of us make the same mistakes over and over again, and
Hmm.
and we don't learn. So how can we learn faster and better so that we make a better life, balance out the previous karma, serve the world, serve people, serve others, get our ego out of the way, and do good in the world.
Yeah, and that's a big thing for a lot of people, and having that awareness of, like you said, and understanding how some of these things work, and if they could have that past life knowledge, to be able to write that ship or whatever, that would be super interesting. One thing that I just came across this week actually, is I met with my lady who mentor, and we were doing a channeling session, and what you were just talking about, how people could remember past lives, and we were shown a method where we could go back and integrate the memories and the skills or abilities that we've gathered through those lifetimes. And so that's what's kind of fascinating to me, is how we could, because this the lifetime for a lot of us, I feel like, feels like a culmination of all the other lifetimes kind of coming together to help with this, especially us who are kind of here to help, with this ascension process and whatnot. So um it would be nice to have all of that information. It's all stored in, like you said, our soul, in our Akashic records, whatever. So if we could integrate that into ourselves now, to have that, all of that knowledge and that ability that we've gathered throughout these different lifetimes, it would be super helpful to you. Have you guys tapped in anything like that?
Yes, and that's not part of my day-to-day work.
Hmm.
Most of my work is with people who have limiting or negative beliefs from their past this life.
Mm.
And those are the biggest blocks that are preventing them from finding out who they are, recognizing who they are, or accomplishing what they want in this life. So I do what I call trauma informed therapeutic coaching, which is using a technology that goes back into that belief layer and clears the blocks, clears the old beliefs so that they can live a better life in this life, so they can see more possibilities. So I don't mess with past lives too much unless it happens to come up in a session.
Mm.
I'm more interested in helping people accomplish what they want to accomplish in this life,
Very cool.
because when they get in touch with their soul, with their true self, they're going to be a good person anyway.
Yeah.
We're all good at the core.
Right.
So we just get all these layers of ego and trauma on top of us, the masks we wear to pretend who we are and what we know, so that people don't find out what we're afraid we are. Uh,
Mm.
and underneath all that is who we really are, which is a bright, shining light and a good soul that's trying to learn lessons and grow.
I like that. So are there any, like, reoccurring themes, I guess would be the way to put it, that you see with certain traumas, or is there something that's a lot of people suffer from this kind of blockage or that kind of blockage, or is there something that stands out to you in that way?
Sure. Trauma is, most people think of trauma as something terrible that happened to you. And that is part of trauma. But there's also other kinds of trauma. For example, it's not just what happened to you, it's what didn't happen for you. So if you were raised with parents who didn't express love or feelings, for example, or if they ignored you or they abandoned you, either by death or by leaving, those are traumas as well. We have developmental traumas where we're developing as a baby and we're supposed to get cared for whenever we need care. And if that person's not there and they still don't come when you cry and you cry more and they still don't come, that's a trauma. And
Hmm.
that has to be worked with because even a baby will come to conclusions eventually like, well, I guess I'm not worthy of care.
Hmm.
And it's those kinds of really core beliefs about the self, because babies and children blame themselves for whatever's happening. Even if they're being beaten savagely, they'll blame themselves because mother and father are like God and goddess. They brought me into this life. So they must be perfect. So it must be I'm flawed. The reason I'm getting beaten is because I'm a terrible person.
Hmm.
And then of course the parents will also reinforce it with their negative beliefs about, you're a waste of space and I didn't want you anyway and all that. So those kinds of accumulated traumas, subtle and overt, uh, bring us to conclusions about ourselves. And because children tend to blame themselves, it's usually an I am belief. There is something wrong with me. I am a bad person. I am a sinner. I deserve to be punished. Those are the beliefs that hold most people back, or I need to stay invisible so I don't get beaten. That's a strategic belief, right? We form strategies around whatever the family situation is, and then that strategy becomes used for the rest of your life. I'll give you a great example. I was working with a guy who had been a multimillionaire many times. In fact, he made millions, then lost millions, and made millions and lost millions. And he was tired of the pattern. So he came to me and he said, help me figure out what this is. So in our process, I took him back into early childhood, and he saw himself walking on the street with his mother in New York, holding her hand, and he looks down and he sees a shiny penny. So he gets very excited and he reaches down to pick up the penny, and his mother jerks him back and says, "Don't touch that, it's dirty." Boom. Suddenly, money is dirty. And he realized that he couldn't hold on to his millions. He knew how to make millions of dollars, but he couldn't hold on to it because it was dirty and he shouldn't touch it.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the kind of thing we find down at the in the bottom of the pool of beliefs that we have, is that they're things that happen that impact our whole lives from that point forward. And we're always working around them. We're trying to figure out how to get around that belief set. But usually those beliefs are very deeply set. Many of them are set before we have words, so we can't even get to them through verbal methods. That's why talk therapy is only partially effective, is because
Hmm.
it doesn't get down to the experiential core of the belief structure. So
Right.
that's our work, is getting to that level, changing it at that level, and freeing people from those bonds and binds.
That's amazing. Yeah, because I know so many people have, even including myself at times where I'm like, what is my block here with certain things? And, even to this day where I feel like there's certain things that I don't even know subconsciously or whatever. And and it's hard too because there's that whole divine timing thing too, which is like, which one is it? Am I being blocked or is this just something I gotta wait for? And the whole so that would be interesting to kind of dig back and see. Have you done this? I'm assuming you've done this work on yourself too.
Oh yes, of course.
And is it?
You can't clear other people unless you can clear yourself.
That's
You
very
can't,
true.
if you haven't explored something in yourself, you certainly can't explore it in somebody else, because
Yeah.
you'll react and you'll get reactive, and then you're no good to them at all.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so how much is this a like an intuitive process that you go through when or do you have it kind of mapped out more as like a scientific kind of process, or do you just use your intuition as you go?
Yeah, well, not only do I have it mapped out, but I teach the methodology to other coaches, therapists, healers, and consultants.
Oh wow.
And so I have a program called the Clear Beliefs Coach Training, in which I take each of these methods and techniques and break it down into specific things to say and do at certain times, and then to add their intuition. So it's not scripted in the sense that I have to do it this way all the time, but they get the script inside of them. They understand why it works and how it's working, and then
Wow.
they can apply their intuition to their particular client. And it also has 15 different methods, so it's not just one thing. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And people get onto a topic or a technique, and they go around trying to apply it to everything, when in
Mm.
fact it doesn't apply to everything. It only applies to some things some of the
Yeah.
time. So we offer this whole tool set to find the core belief and then clear the core belief and then program in new, better beliefs, more empowering beliefs, because that's the planting of the seeds in the fresh soil. Now you can, when you say an affirmation in clean soil, in fresh soil, then it can actually blossom and grow. It's not competing with all the old beliefs. So it's a procedure that has been systematized and I've taught over 600 people around the world.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And if you guys watching want to get a hold of this, all the links are going to be posted below so you can get in touch with Lion and get your blocks cleared.
Absolutely. We offer a service of block clearing with our many coaches that we've trained. And then we also teach people how to do it for others if they're practitioners.
And I think that's one of the most important things. And that's kind of what I feel like part of my mission is too, is, it's one thing to help a person to clear their, stuff and to get over certain things or whatever. But it's another thing when it's like you're helping somebody who's going to go help others and you're being like a force multiplier. And I think that's so cool. And it's so helpful to this whole process that's going on. And so, obviously all of us are grateful for all the people that are in this process doing these things and helping, to hopefully go where we're all hoping this is going. And
Right, right. There's we have to have a lot of hope, and we also have to have realism. You
right,
know that things are dangerous on this planet right now, and
right,
it could go either way.
right.
Uh, it'll either go into authoritarianism and you know and control, or it'll go into chaos and tribalism. And there's a third path, but it's a very narrow one, and that's where people awaken enough to start collaborating and cooperating to bring things back into balance. But it's dicey. We're living in a dicey time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I hope that we can spread the messages far and wide enough that we can go that narrow path that you're talking about because
Mhm.
it's a much better one than the other possibilities. I do think that I don't once we hit that critical mass, it's just going to be inevitable. It's almost like we just got to run out the clock on this victory type of thing. But I'm hoping that we get closer to that than I don't know where we're at right now, but feels closer than we were a couple of years ago. So that's good at least. And with people like you out there helping, it'll definitely help to accelerate and get us closer to where we're going. Is there we got about 8.5 minutes left. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover and go over?
There's so many things we could talk about.
Well, like I said, we could start another one or if, whatever you'd like to talk about. So this is all good.
I want to talk about spiritual bypassing because I
Okay.
think it's an important topic for people in the New Age movement. Um, Spirituality and psychology are 2 feet, and you need to move one ahead, and then you move the other ahead, and then you move the other one ahead, and the other one ahead. That's how we walk forward. If you get one too far out in front of the other, you'll fall over.
Mm.
And there's a lot of people who go for the spiritual answers, which is wonderful and great, but they forget to do their inner psychological work. And that inner psychological shadow is going to come back and bite you in the butt if you don't deal with it. So it takes a psychological cleansing as well as a spiritual cleansing all the time, as far as I can tell, for everybody. Great gurus have fallen off their pedestal because they didn't have their psychology cleaned up, and they started, taking advantage of their disciples.
Yeah.
Uh, and great leaders have been caught with their pants down more often than not, right? So it's really important to walk that path where you're paying attention to whatever's inside of you as well as what's outside of us. The divine and the spirit's wonderful, but spiritual bypassing is where a person has trauma or deep wounds and doesn't want to deal with them, and so they tend to go toward the spiritual. Okay, I'm going to ascend. I'm going to just meditate for 8 hours a day. I'm going to become enlightened and awakened, but the shadow will always come back and bite you in the butt
Yeah.
one way or another if you don't deal with it. So it's really important to walk a balanced path in that way, that you clear what comes up when it comes up. You work with it, you don't ignore it, you don't pretend it, you don't try to spiritualize over it, right? it's like putting Jergens lotion on cancer. It's like, oh, I'll just make it feel better for a while.
Right.
It's nice to meditate or listen to a sound machine, so I don't have to deal with my deep inner demons.
Right.
And it's really important. I mean, the inner demons or the inner voices are just as important to work with. They're part of you. We're multidimensional beings having multidimensional experiences. It's
Mm.
all part of you.
Right.
So work with every part. Don't ignore any part, even if it's painful. In fact, the painful ones are the ones that you should pay more attention to and dive into and work with, because that's the block that's going to prevent you from moving forward toward ascension.
I definitely agree with that. And I've gotten a similar message about, the false gurus and the people who are everything's just love and light. And it's like, there's a whole other side to this too that needs to be reckoned with. And, and the other part of it is it's not so much about stomping out or run one side growing, it's about balance and, bringing it back to their nature is balance. There's always going to be the dark side. There's always going to be darkness, but it's how do we, balance it out. And it's a little out of balance right now, so it'd be nice to a little love and light doesn't hurt anything, but we have to
That's
be aware
true.
of the shadow side as well. And I definitely agree that it seems like a lot of these even abilities in some of the and like the healing stuff that I do, it seems like even more the more I've gotten over certain things, the better I've become, or that certain things kind of unlock, so to speak. So I think that is part of it. And I've even heard like, magic is kind of the same way, where once you get to a certain level, you have to have everything cleared and be able to understand how these things work before you can even start to tap into those types of things. So yeah, that's great that you're out there helping get people there.
Yeah, we are light. We are made of light, and but it's a lot like a crystal. We're also like a crystal, and if you shine a laser through a crystal, if it's a very pure crystal, it'll be fine. But if there's any occlusions or little, gnarly parts inside the crystal, it'll explode the crystal, because the occlusions cause the heat to build up and, kaboom. So we are like that crystal. We have to get really clean in
Hmm,
order to let the light shine through. Otherwise, it comes out warped, or it heats up, or we explode.
I like
So
that.
that's the analogy I like to use when we're talking about, you can just be light, yeah, but you also have to do your cleaning up, and then show.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All right, we're down to 3 minutes. So do you want to start another one, or
I'm okay either way. You want to keep talking? We can do another one, or if you want to close it here, I'm fine that way too.
let's do one more because I think you got a lot to say and I think we got some interesting stuff. So let me send you a link real quick and then we'll pick it
Okay.
back up. So
Okay.
all right, we're back from our quick switch over here. So Lion's gonna go ahead and take us through some of his own experiences with this, and then he's gonna take me through and see if we can clear a block. So take it away.
Good. First, I want to invite everybody to try an experiment. I talk about beliefs being multidimensional, but I want to give you an experience of it, not just the words about it. Okay. So, Joe, for you in the audience, I'd like you to close your eyes for a minute and feel what it feels like to hold the belief there's something wrong with me. And as if it's 100% true, just feel in your body what it feels like. And I invite everybody in the listening audience to do the same. To say it to yourself, there's something wrong with me, and feel in your body what sensations it produces.
Mm.
And Joe, what are you noticing?
Right here in my stomach. As I get a
Mhm.
little right in the solar plexus, I feel a little like pit or like a dark feeling, like yeah, not a good feeling for sure.
Good. And that's one of the typical sensations that comes up. There's many that come up with that particular belief, but everybody's got some form of it. Okay, so pretend that you just walked into a clothing store, you tried on an outfit, and it made you feel that way. You went, "Ugh," just take it off and throw it to the side, throw it away. Okay. And now close your eyes and feel what it feels like to hold this belief. I am a sacred and worthy being.
Mm.
And again, say it to yourself as if it's 100% true. Feel what it feels like to be living in that belief. And what does that feel like to you, Joe?
I feel like I just exploded. I feel
Good
tingling
explosion
all
or
up and
bad
down my
explosion?
body. Yeah, I feel tingling all throughout my body. I feel like it came this way. I still feel it.
Cool. And again, that's pretty typical. Everybody has their own form of that particular sensation, but it's uplifting, it's opening, it's expansive. So this demonstrates that our beliefs create our feelings and sensations.
Hmm.
And the cool thing is you can also use this backwards. You can use it the other direction. You can start with a sensation or feeling and find out what belief is creating it. And I'll give you an example. I went to a party once as an adult, and I was ready to party because I knew a lot of my friends would be there. And as soon as I walked in the door, I felt weird. I didn't know why or what was causing it, but my whole body was just going, get out, get out, get out. And I thought, okay, something's gotten triggered here. And I had done a lot of this kind of work. So I knew how to do this. But I sat myself down and I first felt the feeling because you have to be willing to feel it fully to have this work. Even though it was very unpleasant, my whole body was tingling and it was like bleh, I was nauseous and so I just felt it first, just accepted it as a feeling. And then I asked the question, what belief are you? And I heard almost immediately, I don't belong here.
Hmm.
And I knew that this was an old belief that I had had a long time ago when I was a kid, and I had worked on it, but something had stimulated it. And here it was back again. And so with my process, I cleared it, sort of took it off and let it go. And then I installed the belief because now I had space, I belong here. And then I stood up, opened my eyes, and I was in a completely different party. All of a sudden, people were friendly. They were saying, "Hey, come on over, Lion," and I felt great being there. And I didn't know what had triggered that other one. It might have been someone's looking at me. It might have been a sense in the energy field of the room. It might have been just an intuition or a smell. It could have been anything that triggered that old belief.
Hmm.
But it took about 30 seconds for me to change my sensations and my feelings by changing my belief.
Wow.
So that's the cool part of that particular exercise is you can look and find out what the belief is that's causing a particular feeling or sensation.
That's incredible because I know so many times people, I'm sure, get certain feelings or intuitions and they don't know how to read them or aren't understanding entirely what it is. So just ask and see what it is and see what kind of
Yeah,
answers you get. That's
yeah,
awesome.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So I offered to take you through a process, one
Yeah.
of the processes, and you mentioned a money belief. So what? First of all, what's the situation at the social level, at the actual reality level about money for you? What's the problem with money?
Well, just through this whole process, both my wife and I lost our jobs. And which it's all part of the process, I understand. Just things aren't accelerating perhaps as fast as I had hoped with certain things, book sales, etc. But I feel like there's some sort of block with me with money and I don't fully understand it. But I know like the whole like we were saying, money doesn't grow on trees. That was a saying in my household, and I've heard that's has to do with some money blocks with certain people. So I don't know if it's something with that or
Okay, well, let's go exploring, shall we?
sure.
Okay, good. So close your eyes for a minute and remember one of the times when you asked your parents for something and they looked at you and they said, "Hey, money doesn't grow on trees," or however they said it. Was it mother or father that said it more often?
No, definitely father.
Father, yeah. And just sort of feel yourself as a kid wanting something, asking for it, because you've learned already that you have to ask before you get, right?
Hmm.
And then he's looking at you with that look in his eyes. So look right in his eyes
Hmm.
and extend your awareness into him and notice what he's feeling in his body when he says that.
Hmm.
What are you noticing about his feelings or his sensations or his thoughts or beliefs?
It's like an apprehension, like
Mm.
comes from his own childhood too.
Yeah. And what was his childhood like? Why would he come to that conclusion?
Grew up the same way, or I had way more than he did. Um, yeah, same. Money doesn't grow on trees, and hmm.
So it sounds like he was deprived in a way, like it was not a prosperous time for him,
Hmm.
or his parents weren't able to provide for everything they would want to provide.
Right.
And so what did his parents mean when they said it to him?
That there's literally no money.
Yeah, yeah. And feel the shame that goes along with we don't have any money.
Hmm.
We can't give you what you want. And we'd like to be able to, but we can't because we don't have money, and there's shame in that. And so we want you to stop asking because it just brings up shame for us.
Hmm.
Can you sense that?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
that same feeling from before.
Right. And so now watch your father grow up and become a father to you. And you come as a brilliant, bright light filled with love and desire for being in the world. And what did you ask for? What did you want?
Hmm. I think it was to go to a football game.
Yeah. Very reasonable thing to ask for, to want. You knew that it was going to be a great experience and that you got to go maybe have a hot dog and watch people bang into each other. Like that's pretty exciting, right? And so feel the desire. That desire is natural and good.
Hmm.
It's good to desire. Desire is how our whole civilization has moved forward, is based on desire. Desire for something better, desire for good experiences. Our souls evolve with experiences, and you wanted an experience.
Hmm.
And just from your adult, wise, loving self, just send some compassion to that boy and say, it's okay to want things. It's good to want new experiences. That's how you grow, that's how you learn. So your question and your asking was not a problem at all. And now feel into your father and feel his shame at not being able to give you what you want. And recognize in his body there's something twisted up there, something that got twisted up very early in his life. That there's a restriction on money flow. And money is like blood. If it circulates, the body's healthy. If it stops circulating, you lose a leg or an arm or your life. And so this is a societal problem, not just his problem. He was in a society that, prevented him from being in full flow. And so his restriction caused him to feel shame when you asked. So he had to give you the same admonition that his parents gave him. Hey, don't ask. I don't want you to be disappointed, but no, you can't have it. There's something wrong with you, kid, for even asking. What do you expect? Things? You shouldn't expect things because you'll be disappointed.
Hmm.
So, in a sense, he was trying to protect you. He was also trying to protect himself from feeling shame.
Oh.
Take a deep breath and let your awareness expand into the whole scene and his history and your mother's history and the society at the time and his inability to provide well for his family and the shame that he felt and his need to shut you down in a way so that you didn't want more than he could provide. What are you noticing as you do that?
It just gives me a better understanding. It gives me perspective, being able to understand that, there's not, hmm, not that they didn't want to, but they maybe couldn't, or thought that they couldn't, maybe, you know. Hmm.
Yeah, they were suffering, in other words. They were
Yeah.
suffering in their own way,
Yeah.
and it caused you to suffer as well. But you took on this belief And what was the belief you took on? It wasn't that money doesn't grow on trees. We know that. But what's the deeper message they were sending that you
Money's hard to come
received?
by.
Yeah. Oh, and there's even something deeper than that, something about you.
Hmm. I shouldn't ask for stuff.
So, and I shouldn't want.
Hmm.
Can you feel that?
Waste not, want not.
Mm-hmm. Which means want is a waste. Wanting is a waste of time and money and energy. And and in other words, the message is you don't deserve to have what you want.
Hmm.
Can you feel that one underneath?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So just be compassionate with yourself and send a message to that little boy from your adult self and say, it was just an error of thinking. It's not true. You do deserve to have everything you want. And you have to work within the laws of money in the society. So you'll learn how, and you'll be able to create wealth that you want. You'll be able to create the experiences you want. You'll have a great marriage. You'll have great kids. You're going to have a beautiful life. Know that you deserve it. And that if you want to create money, you can. It's doable. And you have to follow the rules of money. You have to learn the rules of money.
Like I just got lighter.
Yeah. Does he understand? Has he gotten the message?
Yeah.
Give him a big hug and say, I'm here for you and I'm going to learn with you. I'm going to be by your side. We're going to learn together. We're going to create a great life. And just bring that whole scene into your heart, like shrink it down in a bubble and bring it into your heart so that that boy is there inside of your heart always. And he knows that he's loved and that he deserves to be healthy and wealthy and wise. And that he's got your support. You've got his back. Take a deep breath. Let this integrate into your whole body. When you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Got me teared up. Wow, that was powerful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. That's just a little sample of what we do.
Wow.
So here's a test. We always like to test afterwards to see if it really took, right? So I'm going to say something to you and just see what your response is from the inside. Money doesn't grow on trees.
Yes, it does.
Beautiful, beautiful response. Beautiful response.
Yeah.
Yeah, trees get cut down and sold for money all the time. So.
Right. Literally, they do.
You are wrong, Dad.
Wow.
Good. That's
very
the proof.
powerful. I
That's the proof
recommend this
that
to everybody watching. Go get this done. If you have any kind of blocks, wow, that was very powerful.
good.
Can't fake the tears.
No, I can't either. I tear up all the time with this process because I get to see people open and freed up.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like kind of shaking. Ooh, yeah. Wow. I don't know where to go from there. I'm like kind of at a loss for words now. That was very powerful.
Well, let me just make a couple of recommendations, which we always do after these sessions. That is that it will take 48 hours or so for this to fully integrate.
Hmm.
So take really good care of yourself during these next couple of days and go back and visit that young boy and tell him how much you love him and how much he deserves to be happy and to have what he wants. And that will reinforce his knowing of that truth, and that will help dissolve the old belief. Yeah.
Thanks so much. You yeah, I'm kind of all shaky and stuff. I don't know. So
That's pretty normal for this kind of work. So I appreciate your having me on your show and
yeah,
letting
thanks
me
so
do
much.
my stuff.
Yeah, and please, everybody watching, go get this done. I'm not, I mean, I can't, I'm shaking, and so all this stuff's going on. Something's happened. So obviously, but yeah, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And like I said, all the links to get a hold of Lion and to get one of these sessions done is all going to be below. So go ahead and get this done. And thank you so much for coming on. And hopefully our paths will cross again in the future, because it was awesome to talk to you today. So
Great, Joe. Thank you for having me on your program. And to all our listeners, I hope you have a great life.
thanks so much. See you, everybody. Have a great day. Love and light.
Bye.